And if you're not awake already, you sure are now. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. I want to say a huge welcome to all our classes joining live, to our speakers, and to all the groups joining on YouTube and Facebook. It is so nice diving in with another full year of amazing programs highlighting explorers, scientists, cool conservation groups, and more from around the world. So thank you so much for tuning in with us. We've got so much more coming in September. We're really excited to share it all with you. Now, over the summer, we did a program featuring two amazing women doing an expedition in northern Norway called Hearts in the Ice. We've been doing programs with them for years. And as part of their talk, they brought in a special guest. Well, it was very exciting. We had a great time, but we wanted to bring her back in for a session of her own to highlight her own amazing expedition coming in April of 2021. So joining us live in the French Alps, which is the best possible place you could be joining from, is Heidi Sevestre. So we're going to bring her into the broadcast. Hi there, Heidi. Welcome in.
Hi, Jesse. So happy to be back. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for having me back.
Fantastic. Well, we're so thrilled to have you. We're excited to dive in with your presentation today. I'll give you a chance while you're getting that presentation up to introduce your colleague too. We've got a sort of surprise guest today. So if you want to introduce her, I'll bring her in.
I have my own special guest as well today. I'm so happy to have her on. Her name is Anna. Anna is actually the newest member of the team Climate Sentinels, which is the name of our expedition. Anna is actually speaking to us from northern Sweden, which is incredible. She is one of the brightest scientists I know and also an incredible polar guide. She's just back from 18 months in Antarctica, so she's truly one of the strongest women I've ever known, and so happy she's joining our group.
Thank you so much. And so nice to meet you. Welcome in.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to join you. And yeah, it's my first time doing something like this. So yeah, very excited to see how it will go. And hopefully we'll all have a great time and learn some new things today.
I bet we will. Listen, if you can spend 18 months in the Arctic and be a polar guide, which has got to be one of the coolest job titles in the world, you can definitely handle a live broadcast. We've got some really excited kids today. And I'm thrilled to dive in. So Heidi, and if you don't mind, we'll dive in with the presentation. Heidi, I'll bring it up and we'll get started.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so excited to be able to tell you everything about our next expedition. This is called Climate Sentinels. Climate Sentinels is basically a group of female scientists, some of the brightest and most energetic women I've got to know. And what we're planning to do is an incredible expedition next year in the heart of the Arctic. So Climate Sentinels is first and foremost a research expedition. So not only we're planning to go to the Arctic, but we also want to do it with a purpose. We want to collect scientific data. So let me show you exactly where we're going to be going. So this is a view that I love. It is the view of the planet from the North Pole. And as you can see, we have the North Pole here right in the middle. We have Alaska that is just here, Russia here on the left, Scandinavia, and perhaps Anna is right here in northern Sweden. And what we're planning to do is actually to travel to this place, to the archipelago of Svalbard. And this is indeed where our friends Hilda and Sunniva were doing their incredible adventure that has just finished. So Svalbard is a very, very special place, first of all, because it is in the heart of the Arctic. It is halfway between northern Norway and the North Pole. And the Arctic is an ocean that is covered by sea ice. There's a crust of ice over the Arctic Ocean. And it makes a lot of sense when you understand why the Arctic is changing so quickly when you look at the sea ice. But let me tell you more about Svalbard first. So Svalbard is probably the place I call home the most. I actually used to live in Svalbard, and Anna as well. It is an archipelago that is actually administered by Norway. It is not really big, as you can see. It is about 250 miles long. What I love about Svalbard, and Anna as well, is that Svalbard is covered at 60% by ice. So there is ice everywhere on the land mass of Svalbard, but also it is the kingdom of polar bears. There are polar bears everywhere, and it makes this environment really, really special. So there is a town in Svalbard. The main town is actually the town of Longyearbyen, which was actually created by an American businessman more than 110 years ago. And this town of Longyearbyen is actually the northernmost town in the world, which is incredible. And this is where me and Anna used to live. There are also some coal mines that are still active on the archipelago of Svalbard. Some are closing. But also what is very important is that there is a lot of research being done, a lot of science being done on the archipelago. A lot of science is being done in Longyearbyen, but there are also two other research stations. One is called Ny-Ålesund in the northwest, and the other one is a Polish research station in the south. So now let me introduce you to the rest of the team. We are five friends, first and foremost. We've all bumped into each other in Svalbard, whether it was because we were studying there at the university, teaching at the university, or during some field campaigns. So first, we have Alia, Dr. Alia Khan. She's actually based at Western Washington University, so not too far probably from where our friends are listening from. Alia is in charge of the science we're going to be doing during the expedition. Next to me here, we have Celia, Dr. Celia Smith-Johnson, who is from Norway. Celia is a fantastic glaciologist and also a polar guide. Next to Celia, we have Anna, of course, the incredible Anna. And then last but not least, the fantastic Dorothée Vallot, who is the other Frenchie of the team. And Dorothée is a glaciologist, and she's also based in Sweden. So the four of us, Alia, myself, Celia, and Anna, will be doing the fieldwork, and Dorothée will be assisting us all the way from Sweden during the trip. We're really lucky to have two incredible mentors for this expedition. Even though we're used to doing fieldwork in the polar regions, for us, this expedition is so innovative, so different from what we've been doing until now, that we felt it would be great to have people guiding us a little bit more in the preparations for the expedition. And so we have Felicity Aston and Jean-Louis Etienne. They are two incredible explorers, but they are also two fantastic scientists. And as you can see with our expedition, we're kind of walking on a fine line between exploration and science. And these two fantastic people really embrace this concept. So we're really grateful to have them on board. So the way we want to do this expedition is by doing it in the cleanest way possible. As you know, we are scientists and we all study climate change. And what we try to do through our research is to promote the reduction of our use of fossil fuels. We try to tell people, tell politicians to reduce our carbon footprint as quickly as possible. But at the same time, when we travel to the Arctic or to Antarctica, the way we do research doesn't follow that. Typically, expeditions taking place in the polar regions use a lot of fossil fuels and can be very polluting. And through Climate Sentinels, we want to show that science in the polar regions can be done differently, can be done better in a way that is a lot more respectful for the environment. So what are we going to be doing? So next April, all of April, we're actually going to be skiing from Ny-Ålesund all the way down to Hornsund, following this black dotted line. So this should take us about 4 weeks to cover 280 miles. It's quite a big distance, but it's not a race. We really want to take all the time we need to do that, because all along this dotted line, we're going to be collecting a lot of samples, doing a lot of science. And as you can see, we're going to be filling a lot of gaps. The data we're going to be collecting next year has been collected only in a few places. These are the red dots. And with our expedition, we will be able to cover a lot more ground and hopefully collect really very precious information. So this is what it's going to look like for us next year for 4 weeks. We're going to be basically skiing the whole way. And this is almost like going back to basics. This is a really old school to travel across the Arctic, but it is one of the most reliable and also one of the ways that is the most respectful towards the environment. So we will have big skis attached to our feet, and we will be pulling this that is called a pulk or a sled, and this will be carrying all our equipment. So that means the food, the camping equipment, of course, the research equipment, also ways to communicate with the rest of the world. So you can imagine that these sleds are going to be very, very heavy, and we have to train a lot to be strong enough to be able to do this for an entire month next year. And this is what the landscape is going to look like. I mean, Svalbard is definitely not a flat piece of ice. It's definitely not going to be a walk in the park because Svalbard is a very technical terrain. And by technical, I mean that we're going to have to ski across glaciers. We're going to have to climb mountains, ski down mountains, cross fjords. But it is some of the most beautiful landscapes I've ever seen. And this is why I think in the team we're all so passionate about Svalbard. This is a picture of the landscape around Ny-Ålesund, which is going to be our starting point. So when we see these mountains, it means that's it. The expedition is finally starting. And as you can see, there are these really giant and dangerous glaciers that we will have to cross. We also really, really hope to have cold conditions, as cold as possible. Well, perhaps not too cold, but for us, it is very important to have cold weather during this expedition because we want sea ice to form in the fjords. And when we don't have sea ice in the fjords, you just have a lot of water, but we want to take some shortcuts. We want to cross the fjords as quickly as possible. And we can only do that in the winter when we have ice forming on the fjords. And I love this picture because this is a picture of pancake ice. It's one of the first stages when sea ice starts to form, and it definitely looks like pancakes. So why are we going there in April? Basically, there is only one time, one weather window in the year when we can do this expedition, and it is April. First of all, because of the temperatures. And we expect to have temperatures between 3 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which I know it's not very warm, but this is exactly what we need to have plenty of snow, plenty of ice. It makes the skiing a lot easier. But also in April, there's something really important taking place in Svalbard, and that is that we start getting the midnight sun. So that means we have no night during the month of April. And if we wake up at 2 in the morning, for example, well, we don't need a headlamp to be able to see around us. The sun will already be shining. So in terms of safety, for us, it is very important to actually take this into consideration. During our expedition, the goal is really to reduce our carbon footprint as much as possible. But of course, it won't be zero. We will still have to use some fossil fuels, especially, for example, to melt the snow, to have water for drinking, because there is no liquid water in this environment, at least on land, during the month of April. So for us, it is very important to calculate really precisely our carbon footprint. And what we're going to be doing, which is really interesting, is we're going to be offsetting this small carbon footprint through an NGO that I adore that is called greenlandtrees.org. And it was funded by some climate scientists, some of our colleagues. And what they do is that they're planting trees in southern Greenland, directly in the Arctic. And so this is having a positive impact directly in the region that we are studying. So now let's move on to the science we're going to be doing. And we're all scientists, we're all really, really eager to tell you more about this. One thing that is really crucial to understand is that Svalbard is not a random place in the Arctic. This archipelago is actually the place on Earth that is warming the fastest at the moment. So we know that the Arctic as a whole is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world. But wait for it, Svalbard is warming 7 times faster than the rest of the world. So it is truly the epicenter for climate change. And this is the reason why we're going there, to really see what is happening and how Svalbard is being impacted by climate change. And what we're going to be studying is something that makes a lot of sense, especially these days. We're going to be studying something that we call black carbon. Black carbon is basically made of all these tiny, tiny particles that are being produced when we have a wildfire or when we burn fossil fuels. You know, this creates a lot of pollution, a lot of air pollution. And sometimes these fine particles, because they're so light, they can travel super far away, all the way to the Arctic. And when they land on snow and ice, because they're kind of tired of traveling at some point, they have to land somewhere. Well, when they land on really white, pristine surfaces, it will start to make them dirty, to make them darker. And this is what is happening all over the Arctic at the moment. And the pictures I'm showing you here are actually pictures of Greenland. Believe it or not, some parts of Greenland look like this. I mean, there is ice here, ice that is covered by black carbon. And what it does is that when this ice and this snow becomes dirty and dark, it will melt faster. It's kind of like, you know, in the summer when you're wearing a white t-shirt, it reflects the sun rays really well. But if you're wearing a black t-shirt, a very dark color, you feel a lot warmer. Well, it is the same for the Arctic. And some researchers say that 30% of the melting of the Arctic is explained by the deposition of black carbon. And so these are all the things that are producing a lot of black carbon at the moment. And our thoughts really go for the people fighting all the fires that are taking place in the US at the moment. But there was also a lot of fires taking place in the Arctic, super far north in the Arctic this year. And there is no doubt that we'll find this soot, all these fine particles, in the snow and ice of Svalbard. Every time we take our cars, every time we use fossil fuels, this is producing black carbon. So what's fascinating is that these fine particles, they can travel so far away, and we often don't think about this, but they can cover thousands of miles being carried by the winds. And then when it rains or when it snows, it will force all these particles to deposit. So imagine if we have wildfires in California at the moment, well, all this smoke, all this black carbon can be taken away and carried easily all the way to Greenland or to the rest of the Arctic. And this is exactly what we're going to be studying during the expedition by collecting samples of snow and ice. The second part of the science we're going to be doing is to validate satellite data. And by that, I mean that we have an incredible amount of satellites orbiting the planet at the moment. And some are really useful to understand how quickly snow and ice melt. One of these satellites is called the ICESat-2 satellite. It was launched a little bit over a year ago by NASA. And what ICESat-2 does is that it sends pulses, laser pulses, to the surface of the planet. I mean, we cannot see them, we cannot feel them. But what these laser pulses do is that they measure the altitude of things on the planet. For example, how tall this mountain is, how tall this glacier is. And when the glaciers melt, well, ICESat-2 can actually detect these changes, this melt. But the problem is that these lasers, when there is fresh snow, sometimes they don't exactly detect the right surface. Sometimes they penetrate a little bit in the snow. So it's going to be very useful for the people using the ICESat-2 data to know how thick the snow is in Svalbard in April 2021. And this is the information we're going to provide so they can correct and rectify the data collected by the satellite. One part of this project that is very, very dear to me, and this is the reason why I'm so excited about being here today, is climate education. I feel that for too long, science has kept its work to itself. And sometimes science can be a little intimidating. But our goal with Climate Sentinels is to make this science accessible to as many people as possible, and especially the youth. We want to make the youth excited about science. We want to make the youth understand what is currently happening in the Arctic, and first and foremost, to make them understand how much power they have to help us change things for the better. And so this is why I'm so happy to have Jessie on board and also Anna here to make sure that in the preparations leading to the expedition, and perhaps even during the expedition, we should be able to give you even more news and even more updates on the science we're going to be doing. Finally, for this project, we will be joined by two other people. One of them, Manuel, is going to be filming, and the other one, Paolo, who will join us at the beginning of the trip, will be taking pictures of this expedition. And again, this is a great way to explain how we're doing the science, how we're planning for this expedition. And they came at the condition to only follow us on skis and dragging a pulka. And this is what they're going to be doing. So kudos to them. It's not going to be easy, but I'm so happy that they can join us. So this is all from me. If you're keen to follow the preparations leading to the expedition, this is our website, www.climatesentinels.org. We also have an email address, so if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send some questions directly there. And I really look forward to hearing all your questions, and I think me and Anna are super keen to answer them. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. That was, you know what? It's let me bring Anna back in. Welcome in. You know, for anyone who's joining either live or on YouTube, that was really, and I've done like 800 of these now. That was one of the most beautiful, like nice presentations I've ever seen or been a part of. So thank you guys for everyone who's involved, and hopefully we get a whole bunch more watching after the fact too. That was amazing. So before we dive in, a quick couple notes for anyone on YouTube or Facebook. Let me know where you're joining from. We'd love to hear where you're watching from around the globe. We do have a student joining us all the way in India, which is really exciting. So nice, diverse group of people tuning in already. And share your questions in the YouTube or Facebook chat bar. We will take as many as we can. I'm going to go to Ms. Brandt's class in just a minute while you guys get set. Make sure your camera's all good. But I wanted to start off with a question for both of you of why it's so important that this is an all-female expedition. I know you highlighted that you have some male photographers joining at the end, but why is that such an important thing in 2021 or just in general? Yeah,
I think me and Anna both experienced it, that we work in a very male-dominated field. And it's great to see that this is rapidly changing. But still, we need to do a lot more work towards showing that, you know, we're just as good, or sometimes even better, than our male counterparts. The field of glaciology, which is me and Anna's field, can be intimidating, but we totally belong there. And I think the goal is also to inspire young girls to become the future glaciologists of the world.
Fantastic. Anna, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Your own experiences as a player?
It's not often that you can go on an expedition and only be joined by other female scientists. I think that's very rare, in my opinion. I've never been out working in Antarctica or Arctic with just other women. So yeah, I'm very excited about doing that. So it's definitely important, in my opinion.
Fantastic. Great answer, ladies. And so let's dive in with some questions from classes. We also had a student just join us in Saskatchewan. Welcome into Atlanta. That's awesome. But let's go to Ms. Brandt's class, joining us in Vancouver, British Columbia. If you have a question for us, go for it.
Hi, Heidi. Hi, Anne. So thank you very much for giving your time this morning. I'm curious, how do you mentally or physically prepare for your 4-week-long expedition?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a great question. I think I will leave this one to Anna first, because she is definitely one of the fittest person I know. So what do you do, Anna, to prepare?
Well, physically prepare to this kind of thing. I ski a lot and I climb a lot in my free time. But if I don't have outdoor opportunities, then I will go to a gym and exercise. I'm a big exercise freak. So I think the physical part will not be too tough for me. The mental challenge is much more different though. But yeah, you just have to keep a very positive mind. And it's obviously nice if you already know each other and you know that you work together as a group, because that can become very problematic if you don't work together as a group.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, we always think about the physical aspect first, but actually the mental aspect is extremely important. And I'm doing a type of training that kind of helps me with both aspects. At the moment, I'm pulling car tires, which looks really funny when you're in the forest and you see me dragging my car tires. But mentally, it is a completely breaking exercise because there's nothing more boring than this. And physically, it's also pretty hard. So, but I'm so happy about the team. I trust every single person in the team, and I'm sure that the communication will be really, really good during the expedition. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, what a great first question. I love when we can highlight expeditions to really remote regions and how much planning goes into it, and the mental aspect. And I'm glad you brought that up. We covered Antarctica the other day, and just like space or deep ocean expeditions, these are people that you're going to be with for a long period of time in close confinement in an area where you can't necessarily escape or run away or, you know, go get a coffee at the corner store. And so that's a really integral element. So great job, guys. Let's go to also Vancouver, BC. It's a British Columbian day, right? To Victoria and Annabelle. I'm going to bring them into the stream, and if you guys have a question, go for it.
When you go to Svalbard, I know you mentioned that there's light at 2 o'clock in the morning. Apart from that, is there any light so you can see while you're traveling?
Yeah.
Yes, it's daylight 24/7 in April. So yeah, you have basically a period of polar day in summertime, and then 1 month or 1.5 months when you go from polar day to polar night, and then you have polar night in winter time.
So this is cool.
Really cool.
We've gotten questions on YouTube about this too. So is this just because it's so far north? For classes that might not know, we have a student on the equator, so we never would have experienced a midnight sun. Is this something that happens once you get to a certain point? Could you explain a little about that?
Yes, so once you cross the polar circle, and you have this on both the South Pole and the North Pole as well, so both in Antarctica and Arctic. So once you're crossing this polar circle, you will have, when you're close to polar circle, you have 1 day of polar day, but when you're at the North Pole and the South Pole, then you basically have half of the year polar day and half of the year polar night. So you have 1 sunset or 1 sunrise when you're at exactly at the poles.
Fantastic. Thanks, ladies. All right, our question from the student in India, and he wants to know, what would your diet be during this expedition? What are you guys eating when you're out there?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I'm French, so I mean, this is very important to me. And unfortunately, you know, even though the food is super important because we need a lot of energy, we're going to need about 3 times more food, more energy than I would need, you know, today at home. And the thing is, we cannot really take fancy products with us. And so we're going to be using a lot of dehydrated food, freeze-dried food. So it's typically ready-made meals that don't have any water in them. So it looks like a bit of a sachet with powder inside. You have to boil water, pour water, just like when you make mashed potatoes from the supermarket. You pour water in your sachet, and this is what you eat. And honestly, it only tastes good in the field when you've skied over 20 kilometers. If you try to eat this at home, it is not very nice. Yeah. So a lot of that.
I like that you mentioned being French as like the particular reason why this is so bothersome to you, because we've covered a lot of freeze-dried food, but that's very funny. Anna, so I mean, with all this exercise you guys are doing, it's okay, isn't it? Come on.
Well, freeze-dried food is not tasty, definitely not. I feel like I've eaten a lot of that in my life. But I usually recommend like sriracha or Tabasco or something like chili, something spicy. Then anything goes down. But yeah, obviously cheese. If we can bring some, we should definitely do that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best part. You finish this amazing expedition, you get back home, and then you can just have the nicest meal possible. It's always fun talking to explorers about their first thing that they want to have when they get back. But in the meantime, for any students watching, you can go to places, stores that sell freeze-dried food for expeditions. You can try a bag of this. I've had them before. Some are okay, some are pretty bad. But not up to the standards that you might have at home. That's awesome, guys. All right, I'm going to bring back Ms. Brandt's class. If you guys have another question for us, come on in.
I kind of have a two-part question. So, student wants to know, why aren't you just walking instead of skiing? And also, will you have to be doing any traveling up the hills or attempting to ski up a hill?
These are such great questions. And I love the question, the first one as well, about the fact that why aren't we just walking instead of skiing? Because skiing is a bit more technical. You have to bring special equipment. But the main reason is because when you're walking on snow and ice in Svalbard, you can basically go quite deep in the snow, and it makes it very, very hard to walk just using your feet or your boots. But if you're using something to spread your weight, such as snowshoes, for example, or skis, then you're kind of floating on the snow, and you don't sink into the snow as much. And in terms of safety, that's very important, because when we're going to be skiing over 4 weeks, we're going to be skiing over a lot of glaciers, or glaciers, I should say, which is more appropriate for Americans. And these glaciers, they're made of ice, but sometimes they can have really deep cracks in them. And we don't want to fall in these cracks. Of course, it would be very dangerous. And to avoid falling into these cracks, we need to spread our weight as much as we can. So by using skis, it makes us a little bit lighter. We don't sink into the ice or into the snow, and it keeps us a lot safer. And so the second question, I can't remember exactly. Anna, do you remember what it was?
Well, it was about topography, right? If we will have to ski up some of the hills.
Yep.
Which we will have to. So I don't know if you've seen programs about Antarctica, when you usually picture Antarctica as very, very flat, which it is. And Greenland also, for large regions, is very flat, but Svalbard isn't. So Svalbard is loads of mountains and fjords and glaciers that have been going in between the mountains, so it's a lot of topography. So we will have to ski a little bit up and a little bit down, but we've planned a very good route, so we shouldn't need to do any very steep uphill or downhill skiing, which would be very difficult to do with polks anyway.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to bring up Victoria and Annabelle if you guys have another question for us. And then again, anyone on YouTube wants to share, don't be shy. I know you need to have an account to send questions, so some of you might not have that, but do share questions. We look forward to that. So yeah, in Vancouver, if you have another one, just demute your microphone. There you go. You're good to go.
So I'm wondering, how did you become a glaciologist and meet the other people on your team?
That's a great question. Well, for me, it was kind of easy because I was born in the French Alps. We have some incredible mountains like all around me. And from a very young age, I started to be almost obsessed by being in the mountains. So I started hiking, climbing, mountaineering. And when I discovered these higher altitude environments with glaciers, I thought, wow, like this is the coolest place on earth. And what can I do to spend my life being around these glaciers? And actually, a mountain guide told me that some people were being paid to study glaciers. And I thought, what? Like this is possible? And he said, yeah, they're called glaciologists. And so I was about 15, 16 at the time. And I thought, okay, well, this is what I'm going to become. And I'm so happy I've managed to do that.
Cool. I didn't know I wanted to be a glaciologist at that young age. So I remember when I was 6 years, I wanted to climb Mount Everest. That's one of the first things I can remember ever wanting. But then after that, I wanted to become a paleontologist, study dinosaurs. And it wasn't until I was 20 years old, I traveled to the Alps for the first time and I saw a glacier for the first time. And I walked out on this glacier and was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And ever since then, I could either become a mountain guide or a glaciologist, and it just seemed a little bit easier to go the science route. So I started studying physical geography and then glaciology and then PhD.
Wow, that's so great. And what I like about this team is that we're all driven by the same passion, and we all met in Svalbard. And this, I think, is what is uniting us, that we all bumped into each other at different times, whether it was because we were studying in Svalbard or teaching or doing some research. And so we all have the same drive. And we started thinking about this project more than 3 years ago. And we thought, okay, we want to do research, but we want to do research in a different way, in a more innovative way. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited for next year.
It's such a cool project. Again, bringing together your mutual expertise. You guys have so much experience in these amazing places together and jointly. It's going to be such a fun expedition. We're so excited to keep covering it. And for all our students watching live, not only are we doing this session, but we're going to do more on Climate Sentinels as it gets ready. And then after the fact as well, if we can do one live from Svalbard, we'd love to do that. Don't know if that's possible. We will certainly try. And this is a nice start to the journey to highlight all the cool stuff you guys are going to be doing. I'm going to take 3 more questions. So I'll start with one on YouTube. Daniel wants to know how you can learn more about black carbon. Really inspired by that. I've never seen a picture quite like the one you shared. So is there a resource or something on Climate Sentinel's website where we can guide people to learn more, or anything you'd recommend?
Yeah, Daniel, great question. I mean, this is really new research, and we're starting to understand that black carbon impacts snow and ice all over the world, not just in the Arctic, but also in Antarctica, also in the Himalayas and in the Andes. There's also another website that I really recommend. It is the Dark Snow Project. And this is the research being done on black carbon in Greenland. They were some of the pioneers actually studying this phenomenon. And it is scary because we do know it is accelerating the melting of the cryosphere, of all these frozen things on Earth. But the good thing about black carbon is that as soon as we stop emitting black carbon, as soon as we stop these fires, we stop burning fossil fuels, it only takes a few weeks to get rid of the black carbon that is floating in the atmosphere, because it will all has to deposit somewhere, has to land somewhere. So definitely, we can act on black carbon very quickly, but we still need to know precisely how much it is affecting all the different parts of the Arctic, especially Svalbard.
Fantastic. Anna, did you have anything to add, or that was pretty great?
Well, not really. I mean, it's, as Heidi already said, there's not that much research that has been done. So This is one of the first larger projects, actually, with black carbon. So that's also one of the really exciting parts with this.
That is super cool.
And if I can add something, with the samples we're going to be collecting, the goal will be the technique we're going to be using will allow us to know the source of black carbon. So whether it is wildfires, whether it's other fossil fuels that have been burnt, but also the goal is to reconstruct the journey that these particles have taken. So we should be able to say, okay, this sample of black carbon that is in the snow in Svalbard actually comes from that country or that region of the world. And so we should be able to even alert the places that are the sources of black carbon that might not know that they're having a negative impact all the way to the Arctic. And it's not about pointing the finger, but again, it's about educating people to show that, what's happening in our own countries isn't stopped by our borders. We can definitely have an impact all the way to the polar regions.
Yeah. I love this idea, the very cool visualization you showed of all the particles moving around the world. We've covered before that the dust of the Sahara helps fertilize the jungles of South America, which is an amazing thing to learn. It's one of my favorite things. When I was about 10 years old, I found that out. But this is a really nice complement to that. So I'm really glad we got a chance to cover Dark Snow. And again, Dark Snow Project, at the bottom of your screen, I just brought up the banner. So check that out. Let's bring back in Miss Brandt's class for one more question. We'll do another one with our other kids in Vancouver, and we'll end it off from there. So Miss Brandt's class, come on in.
So our final question is about the technology that you're going to be using for data collection, for communication. So we're assuming that all of your electronic tools and devices need a battery. So what will happen if you run out of battery or if they die?
So we will be bringing solar panels as well. So that's something that we're going to try to use as much as possible, because batteries are really big and really heavy, because small batteries won't be able to survive in very cold temperatures. So if you bring battery, you need to either bring this very large, like car batteries, or even larger. So yeah, solar panels at the moment is it's the way we're trying to go as much as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. We're going to try to minimize how much energy we need. And this is why we're actually focusing on black carbon, because collecting snow and ice samples, the way we're going to be doing it, doesn't require any extra energy but muscle power. So we're kind of powering our science. And for our communications tools, as Anna said, it will be solar panels. So that's a great way. And because we have sun 24 hours a day, it should work fairly well.
Fingers crossed. It's with expeditions, you can only plan. You guys have been talking about this for 3 years, you said, so there's so much planning that goes into something like this. And when you get there, sometimes things go a little awry, and you have those contingency plans in place. And again, the expertise of your team is such that you should be able to deal with anything that life throws at you. So awesome, ladies. All right, I'm going to go back to Victoria for one more question. If you guys want to come back in, and go for it. Just demute your mic.
Okay, my final question is, what kind of wildlife will you expect to see while you're up there?
That's a great question, Victoria. And Svalbard is a very special place for that. We have to be ready for anything, as Jessie just said. And the main animal or the main beast we might encounter during this expedition is the polar bear. And what is very, very important to know is that we are going to be in their environment and not the opposite. So we really don't want to be disturbing them at all. We're going to try to avoid them as much as possible. And if we see a polar bear in the landscape, we're going to try to find another way so we don't disturb it. But there might be some other wildlife we're going to see. Anna, do you want to say more about all these other beautiful animals we might see?
Well, definitely a lot of reindeer. There's loads of reindeers in Svalbard. And hopefully some polar foxes as well, especially when you come closer to the inhabited areas. You have a lot of polar foxes, and obviously seals. It's the time of the year when the seals have just had their pups. So when you're crossing the sea ice, if there is sea ice, we'll probably see quite a lot of seals, and maybe some birds as well, maybe some fulmars already that time of the year, and the Arctic ptarmigan as well.
Yeah, and we might have animals with us as well. We're hoping to be able to have 1 or 2 polar dogs to join our trip. And this is also for safety, because the dogs will be able to smell polar bears way before we're able to see them. So this is, of course, extra food to carry for us, but it would be so great to have these wonderful polar dogs to come with us.
Yeah. What a cool question. And it segues so nicely as we get close to the end of the broadcast to a couple other things. One is next Monday. So this coming Monday at 4 p.m., we have a woman who was on the Mosaic Arctic expedition, and she's going to be talking about all the amazing animals she saw when she was on that. So if you're keen to follow up, Jessie Cramian, Monday at 4 p.m. And then also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our Backyard Bio program. So of course, Heidi and Anna live in some of the most amazing ecosystems in the world already. They're going to get a chance to see some more incredible creatures up in Svalbard. But wherever you're joining from around the world, Backyard Bio is our September project. Go out in your literally backyard, parks near you, explore and find and share the wildlife that's near you. We got some great stuff pouring in already, and we're excited to have you join us. With that, and with the caveat that when we end the broadcast live, Heidi and Anna, please do stick around and we can chat about this more. But I just want to say a huge thank you to both of you for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to get to highlight your expedition. And as you said, Heidi, at the beginning, so climatesentinels@gmail.com is the email to ask more questions?
Exactly. And please do not hesitate. We would be so happy to answer your questions.
Fantastic. So anyone could check out the beginning of the broadcast for that. Check out the Climate Sentinels website. We'd love to have more questions pouring in as we cover this expedition. And let me bring in Ms. Brandt and Victoria to say a big hello and a fare thee well to you guys as well. So there we are, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And,
Thank you so much for all your questions. They were really brilliant.